I'm the reporter. So can we get your reaction to the explanation that was given for Senator McConnell's episodes and what you believe happened?
I think it's an inadequate explanation to say this is dehydration. The one thing that is very clear is that when someone has a seizure, it doesn't always show up on an EEG. So the person out there who's saying, oh, it's dehydration, says he has a normal EEG. Well, after brain trauma, about 25% of people can get seizures. It's called post-traumatic epilepsy or post-traumatic seizures. Of those seizures, if they're short, if they're less than 2 minutes, only about 17% of them will show up on an EEG. So if you're having seizures and you come into me and I get a normal EEG, I shouldn't then say, oh, well, you probably have dehydration. No, you have a normal EEG because I didn't catch you at a time when you were having a seizure. It's the same reason we wear heart monitors and we wear EEGs sometimes for long periods of time to try to see if you pick up activity. But it also would reassure people if people knew what it was. I think what people don't like is they don't like being told something is one thing when everybody is an armchair doctor at home saying, oh, it sure doesn't look like a dehydration to me. Well, I've practiced medicine for 25 years and it doesn't look like dehydration to me. It looks like a focal neurologic event. That doesn't mean it's incapacitating, doesn't mean he can't serve, but it means that somebody ought to wake up and say, wow, this looks like a seizure, and maybe there's some seizure medication that could be given for this. But I don't know all of the history. So, I'm speaking off the cuff, seeing the same thing you've seen on television, but with my medical background, this is not dehydration. There's something else going on. And one reason for speaking out is maybe somebody, I'm not sure who is the treating physician here, will actually think about something beyond dehydration, because there are treatment for seizures. Many seizures get better after trauma as it resolves. But we're 6 months after this, after the fall from March, and that I think somebody ought to be at least entertaining the diagnosis. The other thing you can do is if an EEG was normal to begin with, try a 24-hour one or a 48-hour one until you can catch it. Do we only have 2 episodes, or are we having 1 episode a day that we don't know about because it's not happening in public? Now, it isn't my business to tell anybody else to reveal their medical records, but at the same time, I think if you go halfway and you reveal stuff that doesn't make any sense, it just leads to more questions.
Are you planning on asking those questions tomorrow?
The thing is I just can't resist sort of when people say things that don't make sense. And this isn't so much a criticism of anything that Senator McConnell is saying, but there are physicians now saying publicly that the diagnosis is dehydration. This is the same physician who is also saying that our young people should be vaccinated 3 times to be a page in there. So I have a lot of disagreements with the thought process, of this particular individual. And I think it ought to be questioned, because we shouldn't just put out stuff. But I also think it leads to more questions. If I tell you something, raise your hand if you think dehydration is an adequate diagnosis. Most people don't believe that. And that's what's bad coming from government. When government tells you stuff and then nobody believes it, it leads to more and more distrust. Why aren't people, must be a lot worse. Well, maybe it's not any worse. Maybe they don't have a diagnosis, but maybe they need to look a little harder for a diagnosis and not give us an incomplete answer.
Senator, given what you've seen in your medical background, are you confident in his ability to lead the conference?
I can't make any comment on that other than my personal interaction with him has been fine, and I think he's been up to the task. And so this isn't a criticism of him or anything, it's a criticism of the way it's being handled publicly by giving a diagnosis that everybody thinks is a lot less than what it actually is. So then people automatically think, wow, it's a lot worse than it actually is. But it could be something very treatable. Seizures are treated. Many people in high-functioning jobs have seizures. Many seizures after trauma go away. But there's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know in March, was there a brain hemorrhage or a subdural hematoma? But he's not the first person to have things like this happen. Hillary Clinton had a fall. Remember, she had a subdural hematoma, and it was described as a bruise by a lot of people in the media as a bruise behind her ear. Well, no, it wasn't. It was maybe in the location of the brain near her ear, but she had a bleed around the brain a couple years ago. And you remember she wore those glasses because she had an esotropia. She actually had paralysis of 2 of the eye muscles. Nobody ever reported exactly what she had going on. But then there was all kinds of people on one side of the aisle or the other speculating, because it wasn't. So I think the best thing is just, a more complete airing of what actually is going on. I think then there'll be less rumor mill.
Should there be an age limit in the Senate?
As long as it's above whatever I am my age is.
I'm not for
We
age
really
limit.
do exceed it. Thank you for coming, Esther.